out of Washington. President Trump issuing a stern warning to Mexico. He's saying basically deal with migrants or face closure of the U.S. border. The administration is also in the spotlight as it's accused of burying a climate change study that shows a long-term negative impact on the U.S. economy as a result of global warming. Joining us now is Michael Maslansky of Maslansky Partners. He's the CEO of that firm. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in. Let's talk about the border, first of all. We had this incident at the border where tear gas was fired at the migrants as they rushed the border. The Tijuana border, which is a very trafficked border, was closed for several hours. Is this the approach that is going to be? I mean, one would think it would be successful with base. What about more broadly?
Well, I mean, I think what's so amazing about what's going on in the immigration debate now is you've really got two different stories playing out. You've got the narrative that the Trump administration, I think, wants to play out, and they'll tell the stories of the most violent members of the caravan and what they're doing to try and attack the border and how Homeland Security is coming back and trying to repel them. And then you'll see the stories from the left of families with young children and how it's a very different story. And so we're having this debate that really is not being reconciled at all by anyone.
And we don't expect Congress to do anything in the next 3 weeks while they're in session. But you've got images of children at the border who got hit with some of the tear gas. As part of this, we know from the polls that, the majority of Americans want a deal for the DACA students. But does any of this really get settled going forward? It's just going to fester for several more weeks.
It doesn't sound like it, particularly with the Congress now divided. But, you know, it's interesting. I mean, I don't think liberals particularly want people storming the border like that either. I mean, to be perfectly honest, it's not an image that any American wants. Every American wants a legal, legitimate, orderly process to become an immigrant into this country. And it's sort of curious to me, you know, how immigrants on the other side of the border have become radicalized, or at least are storming the borders in ways that they haven't before, given that they know the response is going to be much stronger against them, given who's the president.
Well,
I don't know where that's coming from.
It did happen apparently a couple of years ago during the Obama administration, but it was only about 100 people.
Right.
There was tear gas at that point.
And maybe the images aren't as striking and the response isn't as harsh either, Julie. I mean,
perhaps. I don't know. I mean, it's also interesting because there are real economic costs to closing the border. I mean, like I said, that Tijuana entry, I heard a stat that 100,000 people cross over per day, many of them with dual citizenship who work on the other side.
Absolutely. And you're seeing this on a Thanksgiving weekend where many more people are going to be crossing the border to begin with. You've got people who are working on both sides of the border. It slows that down. All of the commerce between Mexico and the U.S. in the midst of getting ready to sign a new NAFTA pact is all impacted by this debate over immigration. And I think, you know, where the administration stands is they don't need any kind of legislative solution. They don't need Congress to act. In fact, they'd love Congress to take a very extreme approach when they come back in January, because what it does is it allows the Trump administration to continue to appeal to the voters who believe that immigration is the most important problem. And I think it was the Gallup poll this week had the highest number of people saying that immigration was the top issue for Americans in something like the last decade, which is fairly astounding given how limited a challenge immigration really is for most of those people who say it's the biggest problem.